Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby, and we're finishing up the month of May. And it's a perfect time because my guest who is on with me today has some great, exciting things happening in June. So we thought it was a really good time to get her on. But as you also know about me, and I may not do it every week, but I kind of got away from it for a little bit. But I always like to say that I encourage people to be open to meeting people, to be curious, to learn, to not shut themselves off because isolation is becoming an issue. It has become quite an issue. So for all those folks who are out there, and I have some friends like this, like, nah, I don't want to get to know people. I would just encourage you to be open. I know a lot of people think of networking as a dirty word. So don't think of it as that. Think of it as just, expanding your knowledge, expanding your circle of people that you know. I'm not saying you have to become a best buddy with everybody, but it's good to know different people. I can personally tell you that my life has really been enriched by so many people that I've met, and in particular women. So that's why I like to say at the top of every week, you never know if you meet a person out, you like they might hand you a business card for something that you're totally not interested in, but keep it. You might learn about their hobby that interests you. You guys might connect on another level, or like weeks, months, a year later, you might be like, oh my gosh, my friend could use this service, or I could, oh, that person's looking for a position. Let me see if I can help her. So I really do believe in all that. And okay, that concludes my mini TED talk. So now I'll get to who my guest is. Jennifer Estelle is my guest today. And I will tell you, I normally remember how, but I feel like similar to Thea Cochran, who I had on a few months back, I feel like we connected through Facebook, where it was one of those like, hey, we know some kick-ass women. We should be like people who talk because we're both amazing women. And I think that's kind of how it came about on Facebook. I will say that Jen and I did get together over the winter so that we could meet in person. And we had, of course, something I love to do. We got together at Nimble Hill Winery, had a couple glasses of wine. And I think it was that day, yeah, the power went out. So that was kind of fun. We were like, well, I guess it's closing time. So we had that. And then I want to say what we will be talking about today. And I can tell you from personal experience, as I got to visit, Jen owns Endless Mountains Vineyards. And I had the pleasure of going up a few weeks ago and having lunch there outside, having some wine from the grapes that were grown on the property, and getting to meet one of her fur babies, I guess you could say, Liv Olivia, who is a little badass, who is so cute, and I just loved her attitude. It just, her face says it all. But I had such a lovely afternoon, enjoying the food, enjoying the conversation, enjoying Liv's company, and walking around the property. And so I look forward to you learning more about Jennifer Estelle and all that she's got coming up. And so with that, I'll say, welcome. Hey, Jen.
Hi, thanks for having me. That was quite the intro. Thank you.
Sure. Absolutely. And is that kind of how you recollect how we met? I do feel like it was through
Mhm.
Facebook because we had mutual connections.
Yeah, I think you had the event in Scranton around Valentine's Day,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw your event and I thought, oh, funny wine girl. And I love comedy and I love wine, obviously. So I was like, I'm going to go to that. And I posted it on Facebook and a friend of mine reached out. She's like, I want to join you. So it was perfect. And then Thea was on your podcast and you said something, you're like, I just like when people reach out to me and say, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee. So I reached out to you on Facebook and said, hey, do you want to go get a glass of wine? I think we have a lot to talk about. And you said, sure. And that's how it started.
Yeah, and I want to say something. I want to apologize, first of all, because I feel like I knew but didn't really realize that you were at that show. I had a show, a Galentine show at the
Mm,
Everhart, and I feel like you referenced it. And I wish I had met you that night in person. And you're running around like when you're like for my shows, I produce them. So there's the whole like paying attention to details and all that, paying the other performers, getting all that. So I don't always like chit chat with people afterwards. And believe me, it's not like I get right into my rover and my driver takes me to the airport. Like that's so not my life. Because
yeah.
I'm the one lugging the speaker and the microphone. But like I just am sorry that I did not get to meet you that night. But I am glad that we got to meet over wine and talk. So let me just ask you to share because we have talked about a lot of things, but I don't know. There's a lot yet to unpack or uncork, as I like to say here. But to get the listeners to understand a little bit about you, just before we get into the business side and all the ventures that you're working on right now, tell us a little bit about you, a little bit of background, whatever you want to share.
Okay. So I go by Jen, and I'm a Northeast PA native. I'm originally from Mountaintop. I grew up there, lived there my whole entire life, and then I started working for a company that I had the opportunity to leave and go live in Philly for 10 years. So after 10 years being in Philly, and then COVID happened, I needed a sanctuary. I needed space, I needed room to work on the things that were really important to me. And I found the vineyard and Endless Mountain region has become my home. So I'm a native.
So before we get into all of that, I'm going to selfishly ask a question. And I mean, other people might be interested as well. But I had a dear friend who we grew up together. Well, we didn't grow up together. We went to high school together, I should say, in Scranton. He lived in upstate New York for much of his life, moved with his husband to North Carolina for 3 years. Now they've moved to Philadelphia, and they're just getting situated there. Any in a short, I won't take too much of your time on this, but any things that you loved about Philadelphia, or that you were like, okay, you really have to check this out while you're visiting him?
Yeah, the city itself is awesome. I love going into the city, and I'm honestly, have not been back since I left, but I lived in the suburbs. So I lived in Media, and the best part about it was I was able to take the trolley into 69th Street. I was able to take the trolley down to State Street. So I would walk to yoga. I would walk and grab my coffee. There was little shops, and it was that cute main street that I hope to someday have here, that just brought community together. My favorite thing about Media was every Wednesday night from Memorial Day to Labor Day, they had dining under the stars. So all of the restaurants they would close down State Street, and all the restaurants would bring their tables outside, and you can dine under the stars. And it was just really cool. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't wanna say that they're ahead of the times down there, but there's a definitely, I don't know, I guess it was just easier to be social.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I think and you're from Northeast PA. I've grown up and stayed in Scranton my whole life, other than going to state college for school, which is not like the real world. You know what I mean? Like you're like a little tiny fishbowl kind of situation. But I think it's a fair criticism, or a fair observation at the very least, that Scranton and northeastern Pennsylvania is a little different. And we are a little bit slower to things. And I do think we lack sometimes. We have great people here like yourself, but we tend to lose some really great people as well, because the jobs aren't here, the money is not here. And so we lose that, where if we had more of that, I think some of those things would be easier. But I think you and I both know that great things are happening. It's just that they're not as
Mhm.
many or as plentiful, maybe, as an area like that, which also does have more money, I believe, too, per capita,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing too. I mean, public transportation is just easy down there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's definitely important, I believe, getting around. And as someone who's experiencing a driving anxiety, it's funny, well, funny, hashtag not funny at all, to see my friend in Philadelphia. I'm still trying to figure out, like, I won't drive, and I'm like, how can I get there? And my one friend was like, take the train. Well, the closest train is like in, I think, Doylestown or something. I'm like, so I basically have to drive an hour and 45 minutes to get a train to go to Philadelphia. So
Right.
yeah,
Which, yeah,
yeah.
I mean, we've been saying that the train has been coming here for years, but it really it needs to be a priority.
Yeah, it would be great if we can make that happen. But we probably don't have too much say, other than occasional votes. But so let's get back to you. I appreciate that input on Philadelphia, but let's get back to you. You came back to this region, like you said, after the pandemic. And what in the world made you, like, because I mean, like, I love wine, but like what kind of popped into your head where you're like, I am going to buy a vineyard?
I wanted to be more involved with rescue. So my passion lies in dogs. I would say probably like 12, over 12 years ago already, I adopted a pit bull type dog. He popped up onto my news feed. I knew nothing about pit bulls and the animal welfare crisis that we're in now. I I was like, he's cute. I'm going to go get him. So I did. And then when I was at the vet, they asked me if I was familiar with the breed, and it started a conversation. And the key note that I took away from vet visit was she just said, just educate yourself so you can have an educated conversation. 10 years, jump forward 10, 15 years, I'm really heavily involved in rescue and advocating for the breed. And I was looking for land. And this one just hit all of the check marks, and it happened to have a vineyard, and it was, revenue producing. So then I started diving into the business side of things and thought, well, if I start a nonprofit and I have an LLC that can help me make my nonprofit profitable and get the word out there about what's happening, and it's on a vineyard, it just fit, and it kind of fell into my lap. Um, so yeah, my goal wasn't to be a business owner or even own a vineyard. My goal was to be more involved with rescue and transport.
Let me ask you, for those who might be like, well, what's the issue? I think we're all pretty much aware that they have a PR issue at the very least, right? So people think hear pit bull and they're like, oh, dog fights, mean, or whatever. They like the stereotypes pop in, and I have had my own experience, so I know that's not true. My one good friend Kristen had it was a dog that was left in a basement in Scranton. The people just abandoned it, and she had that dog, beautiful brindle pit bull mix, Chloe, and I pet sat for her, and it was the biggest baby. Like, she barked a lot, but she was the biggest
Mhm.
baby and snuggler, and I loved her. So I know you have to have an experience, I think, to really understand, or at least educate yourself. But what did they want you to understand, and what's the bigger issue? Is it really a PR issue where people just hear the bad, like when there's some dogs maybe are raised to be aggressive, or what is actually to help
Yeah,
us understand
so
it?
that's a great question. Thank you. So there's a stigma obviously around them. There's a stigma around rescue dogs in general, but specifically this breed. And it's a media narrative. There is a stereotype associated with the dog. And the thing is with a pit bull, which is just a generic term, it's not even a breed. So I always say pit bull type dog. There's dogs that are not even genetically noted as an American Staffordshire Terrier. They are just different breeds of a mixture of bulldogs, bull terriers, just a kind of like a generic mix of these breeds, but they have big heads. They're very muscular. They fit a characteristic of a specific type of dog. So then they're labeled as a pit bull, which kind of needs to change, but we're far from that happening. But there's, again, it's the stigma, it's the media narrative, but understanding that every dog has its own personality and in its own needs. And unfortunately, a lot of these dogs that are in the shelters have some past trauma. So we know as humans that past trauma can show up later in life. And there's certain things that specific dogs need. Um, I was very lucky that my first rescue, Buster, was the perfect dog. So I thought, well, I'm going to go and rescue all of these dogs because they're perfect. And then I adopted Olivia, and she had fear based reactivity, which I had to learn about. And then I adopted Northie, and he's a street dog. He was um, rescued from ACT Philadelphia. He has a lot of past trauma. So I work with vets, I work with behaviorists, I try and figure out what he needs. And then Kenny is a whole nother story. He was a dog that was found on the street, super skinny, broken leg. So he's very fearful of people. But these dogs are super smart. And what they will do for their owners is anything that you want them to do. Do you want them to fight? Some of them can't. We know that from the past with Michael Vick. The dogs that he was torturing and killing were the dogs he could not get to fight because they didn't have it in them. But they have very high prey drive. So if it's a rabbit or a Yorkie, they don't know the difference. You need to be a responsible pet owner when you have this type of dog or any dog, because you become this dog's advocate. So you need to understand the dog's personality, which means be open to getting a trainer. Be open to talking to your vet. Maybe your dog does need meds, and it's not just because it's a pit bull, it's a dog. And it doesn't matter if it comes from a breeder, which you should not be doing, or if it comes from the shelter. It's a dog and it has its own personality, but specific dogs have specific traits. Pit bulls are very energetic. They're very athletic. They have a high prey drive. They're very smart. They're very loyal. They're going to do whatever their owner wants them to do. So if these dogs get into the wrong hands and it's the type of dog that has a higher reactivity, it's going to do what it wants to do. And then, or what the owner is training it to do. And then, um, I lost my train of thought there, but um, yeah, there's just every dog is an individual.
Yeah, and it's important to learn that before. I think
Mhm.
one of the biggest problems, I mean, we have a lot of problems that I think in this, well, whatever. I don't want to go too far off, but like people tend to do things impulsively or like, oh, our family needs a dog. Without the real, like, ooh, let's learn what it means to be a responsible pet
Yes.
owner, and responsible as in, taking care of your pet, as someone, as who you care about, but also in, how you take them out into the world too. And that's my pet peeve because of people who don't believe in leashes, but things like that. Or our neighbor who literally lets this tiny dog just run. It's gone up the street. Like, well, that's really safe for the dog. But I wanted to ask you just one specific question about the pit bulls, only because I just heard it on a podcast the other day. And this is not a podcast about pit bulls. This is just like a
Yeah.
celebrity podcast, the Handsome Pod, actually with Tig Notaro and Mae
Ooh,
Martin and Fortune Feimster. They were talking about, in fact, I thought of you because Tig brought up Rebecca Corey,
oh,
and the
great.
pit stand up for pit bulls. But Mae Martin, their friend just adopted or was rescuing. So like had them for like a week or two different, I think different dogs, and they were considered pit bull types.
Mhm.
And the friend is adopting one of them, but May had said, but I don't know if this is accurate or correct, that when they're siblings, that they're actually supposed to be separated, because then
Yeah.
they get too alpha or whatever. Is that true?
Yeah, and I think it's called sibling syndrome, where and I don't know if it's specific to females or males, but you should not get two dogs from the same litter. I've known people that done it and they've been successful in doing it, but I also know people that have done it and then their whole lives the dogs are separated. They can't be together. I don't know if it's a genetic thing or a chemical thing, but it's real.
Okay, yeah, because that's what May said, that their friend Alana wanted the dog, but couldn't take both because it was
Yeah.
recommended not to have the two of them together. And I was just curious
Yeah.
if that was true. So
Uh-huh.
with your dog Buster, you said Buster was like perfect, the perfect dog for you. Is that what got you really so active and so like, I'm going to be an advocate, like really passionate? Because it's clear that you're passionate about this.
Yeah, it started again with that vet visit where I was like, should I like I only knew what I knew about pit bulls from the news and it wasn't good. And when I found out I adopted one, I was like, what did I get myself into? And then again, I was like, but he's the sweetest dog. Like I can bring him anywhere. I always would tell people, I'm like, he's 50%, pit bull and part human because we had conversations. He never spoke to me, but we talked. And yeah, he just really changed the trajectory of my life. And it started with I still lived here and I had a full-time job and I thought, well, I'm going to put him in daycare. And I called the daycare and I told them about my dog and how I wanted to get him in these group activities. And once they found out that he was a pit bull, she was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. There's BSS, which is breed specific legislation, and we don't allow dogs like Buster here." So for the first time in my life, I felt discriminated against. I was like, "He's a great dog." And the woman there, she's like, "I understand, but these are the rules." And I didn't like that answer. I didn't like that we couldn't participate in group activities. Um, and again, it opened my eyes to discrimination and what it means and how it's everywhere, and until you experience it, you don't understand it. And then when I moved to Philly, I was having a hard time finding apartments because Buster's breed. And then, but because I was moving to Philly, they were a little bit more advanced in what was going on. And there was some apartments that I could find where Buster was allowed to go. And then he was allowed to go to daycare. And then it kind of trickled down to what was happening more severely down there, and this was 10 years ago, but it's happening here. There's a bunch of strays that we find every day. Shelters are full, they're at capacity. So what I saw happening 10 years ago down in Philadelphia is now a rural problem as well. And there's solutions to that. But yeah, to answer your question, Buster changed the trajectory of my life from adopting this little dog.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can tell that every time you talk about Buster. I want to talk about, so his name is the Be and Let Live, which is your
Right.
nonprofit. But I do want to follow up so we can see which way you want to go there. I do want to hear more about what you're saying about how we can prevent what is happening. I mean,
Mhm.
spaying and neutering, I imagine, is something
Huge.
that's important. That again, I don't understand. For me in Scranton, I have an issue with the cats that run all over and people who think they're rescuing them, but they really need to be spayed and neutered. Is that kind of the prevention that you were talking about, like so we don't have
Mhm.
this problem?
Yeah, so there's multiple. One is spay and neuter. Two is there's no laws for breeding. There is no laws for backyard breeding, and there's no laws for like yeah, there's AKC, but we all know that nobody really follows up with them. And then there's nobody to enforce those laws. If laws are in effect, um, there's nobody to enforce them. There's actually an animal cruelty law that has no code. So when they get to court, they can't prosecute or they can't because there's no code. So then their hands are tied. So we have a long way to go, but spay and neuter is the one of the initiatives where I feel I could put most of my energy in to make a difference. And because I lived in Philadelphia and I lived here, I still have a lot of resources that I use. And I don't know why I keep pointing like that, but I still have a lot of resources that I have in Philly. And the one thing that is a game changer in Philadelphia is that they have low cost spay and neuter clinics everywhere. If I have a dog in Philly or a family that reaches out to me because they need vet care or they need to get their dog spayed or neutered, I can call a multitude of facilities, have that dog within a week or two, and if it's a female dog, time is of the essence to get this dog spayed. I can have that dog in the facility within a week or two getting spayed for half of the cost that we do here. So we have low cost spay and neuter clinics here. And that's a whole nother topic that we can get into because I've been disappointed by a lot of them. Um, Griffin Pond has been awesome. I have a connection there where I can reach out to her and they will squeeze me in the best that they can, but it's at double of the cost.
Mhm. Wow.
And then there's a transport issue too. A lot of the going back to people make these decisions where they're going to get a dog, they don't understand the responsibility, the commitment, and the cost that comes along with that. So some people, their dogs get, pregnated and then they surrender them because they're overwhelmed at this point when the solution was to spay and neuter, and it's not mandated. I would love to see spay and neuter laws mandated. I would love to see breeding be banned. We are in such a crisis that we are at nationwide millions of animals being killed every year, but we're still breeding. That makes no sense to me.
No, no, it doesn't. And I'm going to do for folks listening, if you want to close your ears, because I'm going to do my own little opinion here and mini TED talk. And I think I hate to say it because it's like this is one topic of so many for where in America, I think many Americans don't want to really do the hard work, let's just say, or be educated. It's kind of like a swipe right, swipe left kind of mentality. Like,
Mhm.
oh, a dog will fix my life. And I mean, again, people who like, oh, it's my baby. I get that, but like it's not necessarily for everyone. And I read things, and I've talked about this before, and I freely say this. I cannot stand when I say about people, or when I see people posting about like how much they hate humans, right?
Right.
Dogs instead or whatever. And I get it, because a dog's not going to tell you, not dog's not going to answer you back. And if you're
Mm-mm.
being a jerk, they're not going to tell you, hey, shut the fuck up, you're being a jerk, pardon my French. So I get someone wanting someone who's been wounded by humans, they don't want it. And that kills me because of where
Right.
we're at as a society. It's like, no, we need, there are many wonderful people in this world, in this country. We need to support one another. And yes, animals are beautiful and they can be like your babies, whatever. I get that. But at the same time, you see people on like TikTok and Instagram, and their dogs or their cats are like celebrities, or their ferret or whatever, and it looks cool and it looks glamorous, but it isn't for everyone. And I think we like that quick whatever. But the other thing is, like, we have this problem with understanding two things can be true at the same time. Yes, they
Yeah.
are a wonderful addition to the family, but you also have to put in the work. So to your point, what happens when it's like, oh my child kept bugging us for a year, so we're just going to do it without the research, without understanding the cost and all of that. And then they're like a year later, like you're saying, like, okay, so they're pregnant. Now I'm going to abandon it. Or
Mhm.
like they're ending up in kill shelters. So, like,
Mhm.
is that really the better way? But like for me, speaking my mind sometimes, even about the leash issue, I'm the asshole. I'm like, no, actually, I'm not, because
Right.
some people are afraid of dogs. Some people, when I'm
Right.
out for a run, I don't want a dog jumping on me. And I've had that happen where they've left
Right.
bruises. And I'm not, it's not like I'm, fragile. God knows I'm solid enough. But like, I didn't ask for the dog to jump on me and bruise me. But you think that's acceptable because you don't want to take control or whatever, or learn. Like, I have a big issue with that. So I know it's a big problem, and I can empathize with how passionate you are and how frustrating it must be, because there's a lot going wrong out there that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, a dog, specifically a pit bull tape dog, makes one mistake and it's life changing for them. And jumping up, there was just a dog today that was posted that he is on the euthanasia list because he's leash biting. Well, that all three of my dogs would be dead. They all bite their leash. So that's really not a safety concern. But the fact that the shelter doesn't want to say they're killing for space, they're making these dogs have issues. And biting a leash isn't one of them. And if it's really a concern, it's a correctable concern. I have people reach out to me every day, multiple people a day. I want to rehome my dog. And I don't say, okay, great, bring him. I want to know why. Is it a behavioral issue? Is it a cost issue? Is your dog fixed? Is there something I can do to help you keep this dog in the home? Please don't give your dog away. There are monsters out there that prey on these dogs that are free to a good home. I mean, there was just a dog fighting ring in Hazleton. 30 dogs were confiscated, and they went there. The police were there for another reason. They stumbled upon these
Mm,
dogs. So please don't give your dog away. It is a huge responsibility to get a dog, to own a dog, but there are also resources. I didn't set out to be a pit bull advocate. I just wanted a dog. And then the next thing I know, I was faced with all of these questions where somebody said to me, educate yourself. When I had a problem, somebody said, what about a trainer? What about, you know, there are resources, there's different directions to go, and the bottom line is you don't need to get a dog. It's a
thank you.
choice.
Yes, yes, that's right. Yes, thank you. Yeah. But I mean, it's presented again. It's that glossy, like, everyone should have a dog, like it's a purse or something. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll grab my pink one today and put it on my shoulder. Like, that's not what it's like,
No,
not at all.
no. No,
I,
and it's just like anything, it's been glamorized, and there's
yes.
people that can afford to live that glamorous lifestyle, and it's just funny because you could see a dog in a Cadillac, and you can see a dog in like, a beat up car, and they're both happy. They don't care. They just want love. They just want unconditional love, and they're gonna do whatever their owners want them to do to make them happy because a dog is loyal. Us humans can learn so much from dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. But the important difference there, and as you kind of said too, it's not for everyone. The people who have money can pay the $1,000 hip surgery or $3,000 hip
Right,
surgery or whatever, or
right.
to handle that, the special food
Yep,
because their belly is,
yep,
sensitive, or like all that stuff is not cheap. And, when I see families who look like they could barely pay for their kids' needs, for me, that's, again, that could just be
I
me,
know.
but Yeah. So I want to talk about your nonprofit, but I do want to share. It's funny. Well, it's a lighthearted story. You mentioned about the leash biting, but to the point of understanding breeds, I did pet sit once years ago at Crystal Lake, and it was a boxer. And I love
Mhm.
boxers. I love their faces, but I did not like. I just came up to meet the dog when the family was there before they were going away, and the dog was like barking, and it was like, oh, is this going to work or not? Like it didn't seem cool. And then I stayed, and the dog was great, but I took her for a walk on the leash, and I didn't know this was like her routine where she like turns around and gets like, I guess it's playful, but it was really like scary and
Yeah.
like muscularly like very strong, was jumping up on me and almost giving me like a bear hug. And I almost freaked out because I didn't know that. And I should have learned that. And the owner should have explained, but we did fine. I mean, I spent the week with them and she was an absolute doll, but I didn't know she was going to do that when I took her for a walk. And I was scared, to be honest. It scared me a little bit. So the point I'm just saying, like, really, it is important to share information. And I mean, I know she needed a pet sitter, so maybe she didn't want to tell me, but I didn't know. And then it was the neighbors were helping keep a watch, and they're like, oh yeah, she does that on walks. I'm like, okay, that's good to know. But I was a little frightened there for a minute. um
Uh-huh.
so you have the nonprofit Be and Let Live, and the B is for Buster, your first dog, and Liv is for Olivia, right? Liv, that I got to meet, who, oh my gosh, I
Mhm.
love her attitude. She just
Oh,
looks like she's like, get away from me, but she is so sweet. And I want to tell you, you could tell that you train, which I think you mentioned when we
mhm.
sat and had lunch. I mean, I've been in my, friends, relatives, their dogs are jumping up on you. It's constantly get down, the slobber in your lap. She did not. She was doing her own thing and was like not interested that we were eating. So I'm like, that's a very well behaved dog right there.
Mhm. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, I can
And there's
imagine.
there's a reason why I bring Olivia out when people come and not Kenny and North, because Kenny's a nipper, and if you, like, pull your hand away or you run, he comes at you, and North is a jumper. So I will always start with Olivia because she's my best trained dog. I've had her for, oh, close to 8 years now. She's gonna be going on 11. She was a Facebook giveaway. I jumped into it, and, there were times where I was like, I'm not going to be able to keep this dog. And it's how I got involved in training. And it's also how I learned about fear reactivity, where it was funny because the trainer was explaining her fear reactivity. And I was like, I think I have that. I was like, can humans have that? And she's like, yeah, it's a thing. When people are fearful, they react. And that's what your dog's doing. So it again opened up a whole new world to me where she was, and there's a time frame when you get a new dog. There's a 3-3-3 rule, so 3 weeks, no, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. You're not seeing that real dog's true personality until about the 3 month mark. And at the 3 month mark, sometimes it's not a good personality where you have to deal with it. um or sometimes the dog just gets settled in and you're starting to see their, like, true personality. But there's a lot of education that should go into bringing a dog home. And my goal is to let people know that there are resources, and maybe the dog isn't the right dog. There's no shaming, there's no judgment. If you reach out to me and say, I'm having a problem with my dogs, and you have kids, and I will do my best to help network and help you the best that I can. I'm not a rescue. I can't take your dog, but I can help you with resources and networking your dog.
Yeah. Well, you give me one thought there I picked from that. I don't have a dog, but I feel like maybe instead of a therapist, I could get a trainer. So maybe they could help me with some of my issues. But let's talk about your nonprofit. Like how long has it been around? I think
Mhm.
it's a relatively young nonprofit, right? And
Yeah.
then what is your focus and how can we help and what is your goals for it? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so the nonprofit is called the Be and Let Live Project, and I used to run a lot with Buster, and when I would run, I would get these thoughts, and this is how I had this vision, because when I became educated in the animal welfare crisis, I kept thinking, how can I help? What can I do? And this came up to me. And our mission is to help bridge the gap between human and animal welfare. I am in I lost my train of thought. understand the connection between human and animal crisis or welfare, well-being. I have a background in healthcare, and I also struggled with a lot of health issues. So after I lost Buster, it was go time. Buster's been gone for 3 years. The nonprofit has been up and running for 3 years. And after the first year, I had a small health issue called breast cancer. So that kind of, we didn't do anything for the first year or 2 years because we were finding the ground of what Being Let Live is. Being Let Live needed a home. I had a health I had to take care of my own health, but it also helped me understand that a lot of the issues that us humans face, physically and mentally, our dogs face, and we can heal and bridge that gap together. So my thought process was to have a holistic health and wellness center where people and humans, or I'm sorry, people and dogs or animals can come and heal together, because I know how much my dogs have helped me heal mentally, emotionally, physically. Um, and again, that's why it being on a vineyard was just brilliant, because it gave us this space to have our event center, to have our workshops, and then everything that comes through Endless Mountain Vineyards, a portion of that goes back to the Be and Let Live project, where we're able to help educate, we're able to help spay and neuter, we're able to help keep that dog in its home and avoid the shelter system altogether. My One of my big goals is to have a few cabins on the property so that we can have some foster cabins, and then we can transport dogs that are maybe a higher risk dog or maybe not ready to go out into public. We need to understand that dog's personality, what that dog needs, and then we can open up those cabins. So when people come here, we're calling them, and a lot of it is we're still figuring out a lot of the things, but we want to do an adventure weekend. Somebody's looking for a dog and a place to stay. You want to go kayaking, you want to go hiking, we'll set it all up for you. You just get to spend the time with the dog. If the dog's a good fit at the end, then you get to adopt the dog. If not, then at least the dog got around people, it got socialized, it got activity. It wasn't something that kind of fell on us. And again, we get to understand what that dog needs. So when the dog does go into the home, he's set up for success or she's set up for success. And once a Be and Let Live dog, always a Be and Let Live dog. So you have a problem, you have a resource. You reach out to us, we will help you financially, networking, whatever your dog needs, whatever your family needs, because the goal is to bridge the gap between the human and animal well-being.
So first off, I did not realize that you had breast cancer. So I'm glad to hear that you look healthy. You seem like you are doing well, which I'm very happy to hear and see. Was so you did you have all three dogs when you were going through your healing process?
No, I had Olivia and I had North, and it was a very tumultuous time in my life where I was selling my house, ending a relationship, and then I got diagnosed where I was like, I don't have time for this. Like sometimes
Mm.
people have to remind me. They're like, don't forget you had breast cancer. I was like, oh yeah, I had breast cancer. I had a bilateral mastectomy, did all of the things. I was 1 month post-op when I bought the vineyard. So I
Wow.
had my surgery in January, we closed in February. Because long story short, I found the vineyard in September of 2023, I think. Yeah, it was 2023, and I bought it in 24, I think. I could be messing up my years, but, it took a long time to, because it was revenue producing, I couldn't get a conventional loan, but because I'm a woman and I had the nonprofit, we were able to kind of be creative. I found Farm Credit, who helps minorities. Being a woman, I fell into that category, and then had the nonprofit, and we wanted to preserve the land. So Farm Credit helped me obtain the loan that I needed. And then it honestly, it all fell into place when it I knew, I'm a big believer in signs and fate and all of those things. I knew that I was supposed to be here. And the breast cancer, I think because I had so much on my plate, I was like, let's just get it done. I got shit to do. And then a month later, I was here. I couldn't even prune. I relied heavily on my family and my friends and the strangers that showed up um, to help me maintain this for the first year. And I don't know if I answered this question correctly, but yeah, the nonprofit has been 3 years. So this will be our first year where we're very active in fundraising. We're very active in getting volunteers. I have a lead volunteer coordinator now, which is
Oh,
huge, who I met through Luzerne County SPCA. One of the volunteers reached out to me because she stumbled upon my website and she was like, this is everything that I've been looking for. How can I help? And she just has all of the criteria that we need to be really successful and to grow. So, I mean, I've just handed it over to the higher power saying, help me because I know this is where I'm supposed to be.
that's great. And I know you have a lot of work to do, obviously. And I want to talk to you about your plans and your thoughts for the vineyard and explain to people what it is right now and what it isn't. But what
Mhm.
can people do as far as you said the nonprofit, you're going to be focused on fundraising and you could use volunteers. Tell me about how people can help. So, what would a volunteer actually do? And what are some things that are coming up there where they can help? I'm sure they can always donate, but are there going to be events or what kind of fundraising projects are you doing?
Yeah, so we started our event actually started May 3rd was our first healing garden event. So the healing garden is one of those divinely guided projects where I connected with a lot of locals, specifically Danielle from Connected Fun Girl Wellness. She's been just amazing. And has turned into a really dear friend of mine. But we came up with this idea of having a healing garden or a space where people can come and heal and grieve. And it just, happens to be on a vineyard where we offer, certain services that aren't connected to the nonprofit. But the Healing Garden is a great place to volunteer. We're in the process of creating that garden, building the memorial pathway so you can purchase a brick for a loved one, furry or human, that will create a help us build that pathway and be part of the Healing Garden. So the Healing Garden, the first one was May 3rd. Our second one is June 8th, looking for volunteers. June 6th. And then Danielle is actually incorporating some healing art workshops along with them. So you could check out our website, Facebook. August 3rd is going to be actually the brick laying ceremony. So all of the bricks that are purchased from now until then, and that'll be an ongoing fundraiser. The pathway is going to wrap right around the vineyard, and everyone's loved one will be there and sharing the space with us. So August 3rd is the bricklaying ceremony. September 6th, we're going to have a Kundalini and cacao workshop. And then September 20th is our third annual Harvest Fest, which we're getting a lot of big sponsors and a lot of um, vendors, a lot of really cool vendors, specifically towards dogs and education. And next year, I would love to have like more workshops where we're really honing in on how you can adopt, how you can foster, what responsible ownership means. So this is just the beginning for us, but there's a volunteer form on my website. You can fill that out. I've actually had about 10 volunteer forms come through since our healing gardens in May 3rd. And then we're still working out the logistics of that. So I do have a volunteer coordinator now. And when you come up here to volunteer, you could be in the dirt, you could be in the vineyard, you could maybe be walking a dog, or if we partner with a local rescue group, maybe we can have some adoptable dogs up here for some of our events to get them seen and adopted.
That's wonderful, and I know that that's wonderful that you've got such a nice outpouring too of people who are interested in volunteering. And I will share in the show notes. I'll share the link to your website and I'll mention the Facebook page again. But let's talk about so when people hear the vineyards, right? I know when I first met you, I was Like I was confused. I didn't know. I'm like, do you have a tasting room? Do you sell wines? So right now, your future, you would love to have, I believe, a tasting room, right?
Yeah.
And possibly do events and that sort of thing. Right now, you grow grapes, right? And
Mhm.
you have had some of your grapes produce wines,
Mhm.
right? The Traminette. And
Mhm.
those are, I believe, tell us where they can get those, and then tell us about what the future is, like what the grapes are, when they'll be ready, that sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah, our goal is to have a wine tasting room and an indoor event space. Everything we do right now is outside. So when people ask me about rain, I'm like, we don't talk about it. But obviously this season is we're gonna have to talk about it. So please be flexible when you come up here. Mother Nature is in charge. I've learned that through this past year with growing the grapes. Right now, with our first year, we sold everything to Grovedale. Grovedale is where you can buy our Traminette. Our first season Traminette is available at Grovedale. We have some private buyers that come in. And then last year, we kept a big portion of our grapes thanks to Grovedale providing us some fermentation tanks. And we would like to, this year, we're going to sell again to Grovedale, but we would like to be up and running where we're keeping all of our grapes and producing all of our wine. So it's a single vineyard, it's estate bottled, everything here. That we produce is from our farm. That's the goal. Um, so yeah, reach out to us if you're a local winemaker and you want to buy some of our grapes. We love when people come up, they do a dinner and then they walk the vineyard and then they come back and they buy some of our grapes and then they bring us back some of their wine. So we like to say farm to table and vine to glass.
And what is your time frame, or as far as you can see, when you'd be able to actually have like be selling your own wine there, or bottling your wine and having like a tasting room?
Yeah, so we're going through all of the licensing and certifications now, which is probably the winery down the road, Mountain Meads. They started when I purchased, so they've been very helpful in guiding us through that whole process. But it's about an 18-month turnaround time. So I'm hopeful that next season we'll have our wine tasting room and be able to be fully operating, like operational. So we don't. Yeah, there's just certain things that we can't do yet. But uh there's a goal of getting the wine tasting room and the wine. We actually had some of the originals winemakers in the area. They came over today and tasted some of our Cab Franc that will be released till 26. And I quote, they said it's some of the best cab they've ever tasted. So we have a really fantastic winemaker on site who helps with the vineyard and then is also our chef who will curate a meal just for you.
And I can tell you, when I went to visit Jen, the meal was delicious. I mean, it looked delicious. It tasted delicious, like a Thai kind of dish with noodles, and it had a little kick, but not too much kick.
Mhm.
And the Traminette that was from, I guess, that Grovedale has was delicious. I happen to love Traminettes, and I thought it was truly very good. I mean, it was just honestly, I loved it. It wasn't, some that I've had are just like they're like this is a Traminette, and it wasn't, some are just not right, but this was
Don't
really
fall flat.
delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my whole perception of East Coast wine, I was not educated on wine and viticulture, that is happening on the East Coast. I always thought, well, it has to come from the West Coast to be good. And my perception of wine has completely changed. And another goal of ours here from the Endless Mountains side is to educate, because education is key to everything, is to
Hmm.
educate on East Coast wines. And I didn't know this either. There's a wine trail along the whole East Coast. It's not just the Finger Lakes. It starts all the way up in like the Hudson Valley and goes all the way down to Virginia on the East Coast. And we are in the process, along with Grovedale and Nimble Hill and our partners at Penn State, in creating an AVA, which is an American Viticulture Area, which means it'll be really really big for us. Lehigh Valley, I think, in the last year or two, just created their AVA. So we're kind of following their guidelines. But yeah, big things are happening here, not only, from an animal welfare side, which is my passion, but I kind of stumbled into this whole viticulture. Um, community, which has been great. Um, and then being able to educate myself on the Susquehanna River and where I live and the history and the culture, it's mind blowing when I sit back and think, I just wanted to help with rescue.
And now look what it's brought you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing I will say when I did visit Jen and we had our lunch outside, looking out at the endless mountains, it was absolutely beautiful. I mean, I'm a big fan of nature. So if you're someone who's like, no thanks, I don't want bugs on me or whatever, not that we did have bugs, but you know what I mean. If you're someone,
Mhm.
if you're that person, then maybe it's, maybe you don't appreciate it. But I do appreciate nature. I love being outside in kayaking and hiking and all that. So it's just beautiful to be able to, like, honestly, the perfect afternoon if you can be outside, look at nature, be part of it, have a lovely meal, some wine, great conversation, and pet a dog. Like, hey, that's pretty good. That's pretty good for your overall wellness. And to your point about the East Coast wines, I do want to say that that is something that has been overlooked and probably still is by many. And I'm sure there are folks out there who might be, I'm going to say this, maybe a little more pretentious that it's like, oh, if it doesn't come from
Mhm.
California or if it doesn't come from France or whatever. But there are some really wonderful wineries. And you mentioned the Lehigh Valley. They have a ton of wineries. And when I do go visit my friend there, I will say this though, they're not all good. But I
Mhm.
love some of the ones that the Galen Glen winery is one of my favorites. They have a
Oh, my
lovely
faves.
Gruner Veltliner. They have a bunch of different wines that I like, but there is several down there in that direction.
Mhm.
In Coopersburg, Windy Hill, I think it was called Windy Hill Farms. They had a bunch of different Traminettes that were all very nice,
Yeah.
and also ciders too. I will say again though, like you do have to if you're just out for fun and you want to hear a band and there's like barbecue, whatever, maybe you don't care. I will say there were a couple in the Lehigh Valley that I paid $9 for a glass of Pinot Grigio and it smelled like death and taste it like it. And I don't rarely do I leave an entire glass of wine, especially I'm like, I just paid $9 for this. I took a sip and I was like, and then I took another and I said,
Mhm.
absolutely not. So yeah, so they're not all great, obviously, but there are many that really truly are. And so
Mhm.
I would encourage people to explore right what's right here in our own backyard or very close
Oh,
by
yeah.
adjacent. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, years ago, I would go to the Finger Lakes for one reason, and now it has completely changed where I don't wanna say that I'm a wine snob, but, I'm just very passionate about what we can do here on the East Coast, specifically Pennsylvania, and if it's on the same longitudinal plane as France and Austria, we could grow it here. We didn't think that we could, but with Cornell and Penn State and all of the research that they're doing, we, yeah, we can make a really, really fine wine.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because Penn State I wasn't as aware of, and I think we talked about this, but Corning, I had heard like what they've been doing with viticulture, and it's amazing. Like there's hybrids and they're creating different kinds of grapes, and they are just really diving into
Mhm.
creating different things and being very doing a lot of research on
Mhm.
in viticulture, and I think it's fantastic. It's very exciting about what could be happening, like
Yeah.
literally right in our own backyard or pretty darn close, which is very
Yep.
cool.
And just like the nonprofit and what we're doing with the animals, it's all about education and resources, and they've been great.
That's great to hear. Yeah. And I mean, you touched upon as we start to wrap up, you've touched upon something that's so important. And again, I don't mean to lecture and I can be lazy myself, but it does pay to take time to learn things, like read a couple articles and not and as someone who has a degree in journalism, and this doesn't make me better or different than anybody else, but I may be a little bit more aware. Please don't just read like a sentence or two of something that you scroll through on Facebook because it could be taken out of context. It could be from a
Mhm.
source that's not great. And if you really don't even know, then please don't share it because we're sharing information about all kinds of things that we have no clue, maybe because it confirms something for us that we want to believe. But take the time, whether it's about animals or whether it's about wine. I know it's not like, not learning about wine isn't going to kill you, but it's an interesting hobby. But as far as animals, and if you want to become, a pet owner, a fur baby mom or whatever, learn about this before you take on extra responsibility. Or even if you're just someone who does pet sit or whatever, take the time to be educated. even if you don't own a pet, I mean, just become educated on things because, hey, it's good to learn and not close
Mhm.
ourselves off. So,
Mhm.
was there anything else? I will put the link to everything in the show notes, but was there anything we didn't talk about and you were like, oh, I really wanted to say that, or I really wanted to touch on that topic? Anything else that we didn't that you'd like to talk about?
I think like what I could end with is that we are in an animal welfare crisis, and I know if you're friends with me on Facebook, I I'm all about the dogs and I'm all about sharing, maybe even oversharing, but these dogs need to be seen and it needs to be priority. So if you're interested in adopting or volunteering or fostering, and when somebody comes to me and says, I'm thinking about a dog, I always say start fostering. This way you get a dog in your home, and if it's not the right fit, um if you work with a really good rescue, because not all rescues are the same, if you work with a really good rescue, they will help advocate for you and for that dog and help you find the right fit. So when you're fostering a dog, you shouldn't have to pay for anything. You if you're a person that travels, they should be able to help you find somebody to kind of help you, either find a temporary foster. There's just so many ways to help. And I understand that not everyone can walk into a shelter and not everyone is in the situation where they can foster, but share a post, comment on a post, like a post, because we all know that the algorithm is real. And if these dogs aren't being seen and they're not being shared and we're not talking about it, nobody's going to know about them. And on the daily, hundreds of dogs are being euthanized, killed for space. And it's not the world I want to live in. There's an energy exchange, it's bad vibes, and it needs to change.
Yeah. Very well said. And I'm going to reiterate for my, not for what you're saying, but for everything that like I care about. Like I've often said about people who will say to me, oh, I didn't know you were doing that or whatever. When you see things that you are interested in, or you think, yeah, that's good information. Like Jen said, put a like on it, I mean, and even better than a like is a comment, even if it's just an emoji or
Emoji.
like emoji is equals a comment or like I love this
Mhm.
or it brings attention to it. And hey, and this is I'll bring this back to me selfishly, but I talk about this all the time with the podcast. People, it's almost like they're allergic to sharing sometimes, and I don't even get
Yeah.
it because it's like it does not cost you anything but literally what, 15 seconds? I don't even know if it takes that long to hit share,
It's
and
cool.
people will share memes like, and I mean half the time I get that's my other pet peeve. Memes are always full of misspelled words and grammatic, but no, we don't care. Share something of your friends, share something
Mhm.
from the community, share something that the person is saying, hey, this is an issue, this dog needs a home or something like that. Share it. A
Something.
local business that's having a sale and they could really use the help, and that they do a good job, but whether it's a restaurant or whatever, share it because the algorithms, to Jen's point, they do notice. It is important.
Mhm. Even those events, like even if it's on a day, like I look and I'm like, oh, I can't make this event, but it's something I'd be interested in. Just be interested in it because it gets it seen. And then maybe you can't attend, but maybe your friend or somebody, and they would be interested and like to attend. And attending one event, I attended your event, kid, you don't know what's going to come from it.
Yep. That's absolutely right. And even like to your point where I've seen other people, like friends, people I'm friends with on Facebook who are interested in an event, that might put it in front of my eyes. And I'm like, oh, I didn't
Right.
know this was going on. So yeah,
Right.
it does make a difference, people. So
Hmm.
instead of doom scrolling, take a little break, see from that, because you can always go back to it and it's probably not doing you any good. And I am guilty of it. And that's why I can say it, because
Hmm.
I am guilty of it, but I am trying to rein it in and monitor it, be informed. But when I reach a point where I get like, oh God, and I'm in the hole, I say that's enough for the day. So put that stuff down
Hmm.
and take the time. And I will often say this too, there is still good stuff happening in the world. So
Yeah.
please don't just put yourself in that. And I don't mean to lecture, but this like, oh, everything sucks, everybody's bad, everything's horrible. That's bullshit. And it annoys me and it offends me because, and I say that truthfully because I know the good shit I'm doing. I know the good stuff that
Mhm.
Jennifer's doing, and many other people in the area who perform, who have businesses, who have nonprofits, who are doing their best to continue to shine the light. So please don't shit on us. That's what I'm going
Mm.
to say.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That is like spot on. all you have to do is share and support. Like you want to say support local, I'm local.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
Yeah,
I
we're
look forward to when you get all that good stuff going on up there. I mean, right now it's wonderful and I loved my time there, but I cannot wait till you have a tasting room. I mean, it is the most beautiful, it really is a beautiful, tranquil space. And I think, even like what you're saying about the welfare of people and animals, the connection, it's the perfect space for that to happen. And in nature, we know nature therapy is wonderful. So you add, animal therapy, you add like, good meal, good conversation. Well, it's just an absolute wonderful way to enrich your life, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing it, and coming up here and visiting, and because you really have to come here to experience it. I do like to say that we are very primitive at the moment, but it will change and it will grow. And I think the best thing from when people were here a year ago to now, to see the changes and what it's going to look like in a year or two or three from now, you'll get to say, I seen it when it was just a dream.
Yeah, that's right. So you'll get to be one of those people that, like, as you're swirling the wine in your glass in a couple of years, and you go, "Oh gosh, do you remember when?" And you could say, "Oh yeah, I was here for that." We did forget one thing, both of us, because I want to say it now. Your organization, the Be and Let Live Project, is going to be part of NEPA Gives Day, correct?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, we will be NEPA Gives. I can share my the link for it if you want to share that as well. The
Mm-hmm.
whole profile is on there. I'm very proud of the story that it tells, and I would love to get the word out, so that we can just really build what we're building and help the community.
And I want to say this and make sure I have it correct. So for folks who are unfamiliar or if you're not from the area, NEPA Gives is something that the Scranton Area Community Foundation does. I can't say enough about them.
Mhm.
I've had Laura Gichesi on, who is the executive director, Women in Philanthropy. I was just at their meeting last week. They help to support STEM programs for girls. They help to promote like Women's Resource Center, which is actually now WRC, helping women, get the financial support they need, but not just support, but education. They match savings programs. So as women earn money, they match it for them. They do incredible work. So this is an event that they do that is huge because it's a day they kind of make it almost like, to be honest, like a telethon. It's on first Friday, June 6th in downtown Scranton. I shouldn't say because I haven't looked yet to see if the details are the same, but they've been holding it downtown where you can visit and learn about the different nonprofits. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is it that do they match? There are certain different things where if someone, let's say someone wants to give $25 or whatever, do they match that? Or I forget exactly how this works. You can share what you know.
I think they do. I know, like you said, it's like a telethon, so it's very I don't want to. It's not competitive, but engaging, I guess. So, like, if
Mm-hmm.
you were the first one to get $1,000, then they match $1,000. If you're the one that gets the furthest away donation, somebody from Australia donates, they highlight that and they match it. I think the bigger dollar amounts, now there's tiers, and I think it starts at 50 on mine. Um, so yeah, I would assume they match to 25 or the smaller donations, or if it's at the end of the day, do they take that whole and then um I'm not sure. And I don't know if we're gonna have a booth yet on June 6th, but yeah, definitely something to check out because again, when people say nothing fun or nothing good is happening in the area, it's false. It's a narrative. And I think that that needs to change because
Oh
there's a
boy.
lot of good things. And the Scranton Area Foundation, they are partnered with NEPA Animal Welfare Collaborative. That's how I got connected with them, and they have been nothing short of amazing. I was at the Women in Philanthropy dinner, I think last Thursday, where they gave out $35,000 to local
Really?
nonprofits. That's huge.
Damn it. I was there and I did not see you. I wish
I
I knew you were
know
there
that
because I
was
walked in and didn't know anybody really. I thought,
Yeah, I was invited by, Rebecca, who's just been amazing. I reached out to her about low cost spay and neuter clinics, and we formed this friendship. And she invites me to all of these things. And I sat at a table with Laura, and we talked about animals. And then just to be in a room with a bunch of women, a bunch of locals, a bunch of nonprofits where they're all talking about these amazing things that they do. And to watch them receive grant money anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 is heartwarming for me. I was like,
Yeah.
I just sat in a room and I watched people receive $35,000.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And how
There's
about
a
those young women that were there from the STEM? Like they
oh,
not like amazing? And they're asking questions and they presented and they were like what, 13, 14 years old? They were amazing. Yeah.
yeah, amazing. I mean, and that's the thing too. I still struggle with public speaking and putting myself out there. But if you can start these children really young, and we made a comment at our table too, we're like, look at her asking questions. Like, bravo.
Yes. That's
That's what
we
it's all
told them
about.
that. That was because they were not shy. Like they to have most people sit there, women my age in our 40s and 50s, maybe want to ask a question, but don't want to look silly, don't want to sound whatever. And these young women, they're 2 out of the 3 of the young girls raised their hand and asked the people questions because basically there were representatives from the different nonprofits who were there to kind of like, I don't want to say plead their case, but say, hey, here's what we're going to use the money for. And
Yep.
they asked questions. And I was like, damn, look at these young
Yeah.
women. Now I'm so
Yeah.
proud of them knowing that the
Uh-huh.
future's in good hands. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was very impressed when I left there, but I'm sad I didn't see you.
I know. It's funny. I walked in and I didn't think I knew anybody. And then of course, like toward the end, I saw a couple people I knew, but I did, if I wish I knew you were there, I would have
Yeah,
been seeking you out. But I will say also about that, and then I will wrap up because that's a whole different
I know.
ball of wax. And I did have Laura on last August or the previous talking about women in philanthropy. I can't say enough good things about that. And I will say this much. If you are someone who would like to support that sort of thing in northeastern Pennsylvania, memberships, I mean, I have like the lowest level, which is not a lot of money, but it's not just about that, which they will often tell you. If you have something that you can donate your time, if you're someone, maybe you could teach a STEM class or something, like something you can donate. It's not just about
Mhm.
dollars. But I will say they meet regularly. And in November, I won't get into politics, but we had that election and a lot of us were not feeling great. And when I tell you that this was like that night or the night after, the in November, we were at Fiorelli's in Peckville, to be in that room once again and to hear from people from WRC, to see women lifting other women up, excuse me, was just really positive and really hopeful. So this is an organization that does that. And I know they're not the only one. And for folks who don't live in NEPA, I'm sure there are things just like this where you live because good things are happening. So I'll circle back to NEPA Gives. I will include that in the show notes, basically. And as Jen mentioned, it is kind of, I think the right word they use in the marketing world, because I've spent time in that, is gamified. I believe that's the word they use when they say
Oh, okay.
gamified, to
That makes
encourage
yep.
people. Yeah. So it's like, to Jen's point, let's say that someone donates from, like she said, like Brazil, and her organization is the one that gets it. It's like, wow, that's the farthest away. So then they match
Mhm.
it. So they really do want to encourage fun ways. So it's not just like, hey, donate. Yes, donate because you believe in the cause, donate because you do have some money and you want to put it towards something good, even if it's $25, $50, whatever. Because when I used to do it for the humor therapy fund, I don't do it now because I don't put a ton into it. And I was getting just
Mhm.
my friends and family who donate normally. But with this, it shines a light on nonprofits. And they do, as I said, with this whole gamify kind of thing, it makes it fun to give and it helps match money. So I will put that in the show notes. NEPA Gives, and it's a whole website where you can learn about the Be and Let Live project. You can learn about other nonprofits who are participating. And if you are in Scranton and they are doing it again downtown, come on down because they do make it fun. They make it fun, they make it informative, educational, and it really is a cool thing. And it's First Friday. So there's always some kind of fun going on downtown, whether it's, have a good meal, have a drink, check out artists that are on display in the different galleries and in the different, sometimes in different restaurants, to check out their artwork. It's a really, really fun, positive vibe on June 6th. So again, I will put all of that information in the show notes. Jen, I want to thank you for your time and for your vision and what you're adding to Northeastern Pennsylvania. I think it's wonderful. So great.
Well, I'm happy to be here, and I'm so happy that it's where my roots are. I'm
Awesome.
happy to be home.
Good,
And thanks
good.
for this. This was a great conversation, and I look forward to many more. Let me know next time you're going to Women in Philanthropy. I'll join you.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because that night there's usually a couple folks that I see or go, and then I was like, well,
Mhm.
I'll go and I don't know if I'll know anybody, but next time I'll definitely let you know. I'll check in with you to see if you'll be there. But
Perfect.
so thank you again. And thanks folks who are listening again, look for the positive. And I don't mean to lecture, but I know how it can be to feel overwhelmed by the toxicity and negativity that's on social media, that's in the world. Because, if we just give up, that is certainly not the answer. And why would you want to? There is joy to be had. And when you have it, you'll want to share it with others. And I just think that's what we need to keep doing. So I will be happy to bring you more wonderful guests in June. I already have one scheduled, Lisa Regau, who is a registered nurse, and she is a lifestyle management coach. And she'll be talking about one of my favorite topics that you hear me talking about, especially if you see my lives or my reels on Instagram, my perimenopause, who has me so effed up. I can't even begin to tell you the delightful and different things happening to my body. It's a fun house, but it's more like a haunted house. So she'll be on in June. And then, of course, more wonderful women that I will love to have you learn about, be inspired, be informed, and be entertained. And as I say every week, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.